Trauma is a deeply distressing, painful experience. We are likely to forget beautiful things more than negative things. Painful, distressing. Hurting people hurt others because they don't intend it. Our spirit is affected. We think, no, I deserve better. Now, if you go thinking you're not good enough, you deserve better, this is how it's going to manifest. And there are so numerous adults with low self-esteem.
So many.
Anything that is not resolved is going to be transferred, because human nature was not created to contain pain. No, we were created to desire pleasure. Should you get to a place where you feel you haven't done thorough analysis, it has just pointed you to the need to clean up the past, then that's why therapy is important.
Exists, yes. Welcome back to Reality Check. We are thrilled that you are back with us again this week for yet another conversation on this channel that cares for hearts and minds. And every single week, we give you information that hopefully will allow you to live a better life mentally, or take care of your mental health in a better way. And I'm joined by Dr. Eva Satwine, as usual, who is the founder of International Center for Family Care, for Mental Health and Family Care. And she is also a trained therapist, a life coach, a marriage and parenting coach. So if those are areas that you need support in, please don't hesitate to use the numbers in our description box and reach out to her for an appointment. Today, we are going to be talking about something that I believe everyone has experienced in some shape or form. However, the degrees vary. And this is none other than childhood trauma. But we want to approach it first by understanding what childhood trauma is and how it presents in adults. There's a lot of sick people that are walking around and don't even know it, and are inflicting that same trauma that they experienced as children on their workmates, on their friends, on their siblings, on their partners and spouses. So we felt, again, it was necessary for us to have this conversation. So welcome, Dr. Eva.
Thank you so much, Rachel.
Yeah, and welcome to you who is watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Leave us a comment even as you watch, and let us know what you are liking about the conversation. So, Dr. Evers, I think childhood trauma or trauma is a word that a lot of us adults use, especially when we are trying to figure out, why am I the way I am? Maybe why am I overly angry? Why do I react too much? And so somebody might throw the word, maybe you're traumatized when you were a child, or maybe something happened in your childhood that has led to the adult that we see today. And so I think a good starting point would be understanding what childhood trauma is. How would you explain it in layman's English?
Okay. Yeah, so, and it's used so much.
So much, yes.
Yeah, so childhood trauma, or trauma, let me define trauma. Trauma is a deeply distressing or deeply painful experience.
Yeah.
So whether we get it during childhood or
as an adult,
later on, so that is it. Now, life is experienced, and when we experience life, some of the things come and go, but those that are painful, they are registered
in your brain,
in our subconscious mind. And so the subconscious mind is like a garage. Yeah, so it's where we keep our things. Anything that you don't flush out just gets stored. And the brain, maybe I should explain something very quickly. The brain has two memory chambers. It has one for short-term memory, but it also has one for long-term memory. How do these experiences get stored? So short-term memory is something you connect with, but it gets, you don't the brain doesn't register it as so important that you should keep it. But then something that is so painful, then the brain registers it. It gets registered into our long-term memory chamber because you still feel you need to think about it. Yeah, how it made you feel. So life, once again, we experience it, but we register memories based on how certain experiences made
Affect
us feel. Interestingly, when we experience life, there are some beautiful memories that we get, and we also register them. So those also get registered in our subconscious mind. But can I tell you what? It's very interesting that we are likely to forget beautiful things more than negative things, painful, distressing. So if something was so deeply painful, so deeply distressing, then that's what we call trauma. So that trauma, we go with it. But because it is in the garage, that's why I use it, the garage experience. Some of you who have garages on your houses, that's where we keep things which we don't have the courage to discard, but then we don't use it so often. So you see something like, should I throw this? Maybe you don't have where to throw it yet, so you keep it there.
Wow.
That's why I hate garage.
Because they were made for one thing, but then they end up storing.
So we put there, so we put stuff there. Now what happens is that when we put them there, we don't clean them all the time. So we clean the house. Now some of you who clean your garage, well done. But this is not something we clean every day. Now what happens? Then it picks dust. It picks dust. So every time you open it, you also don't want to clean it, but then you also don't want to throw it, or maybe you'll come back to it. So that's exactly what happens with traumatic experiences. We see them, we want to flush them out, but number one, we don't know how yet. You don't know whether you have the energy to get into that. You're like, let me just be dealing with life as it presents. That I'll come back to it later. But then while you're not dealing with it, it's picking what we call emotional dust. Yeah, so it gets dusty. Now, it doesn't get clean at all. It just continues to be dusty. Now, that's why when you connect with life again, and there is an experience that almost looks like it, we get hypervigilant, right?
Triggers.
We get triggered. We get triggered. Or we kept it because we were not strong enough. I mentioned we are not strong enough to deal with it. But then now you see somewhere you could dump it. And probably that's your partner.
Oh dear.
Yeah, because we are going to get into the detail, but I just wanted to use this to explain to people. I hope this is simple enough for people to understand. Maybe you had an experience with your parents, but because you are a little child, you looked at your dad or mom and you felt like, honestly, how I need to have told my mom something, or I need to have I really, if I were old enough, I would have confronted my dad. But then you don't get that chance. What happens? You store it. So you store the experience together with the desire.
To have done something
about it. Now what happens? So you get someone who now you think you can actually dump this thing onto. Either your child who is helpless, because the reason you didn't deal with your dad is you felt powerless. But now you have power over someone, either a spouse or a child or a workmate, someone you think, I can do this and still get away with it. So that's what happens, that then people start transferring this onto people, on innocent people. Right? So that's what happens.
So obviously, I mean, it would be interesting to know how trauma presents in adults. And I guess which one is more prevalent, because when you describe trauma being something that was deeply painful or deeply stressful, distressful. And yes, I know there's degree mattering, but not all of us have experienced trauma. There's children who went through divorce when they were little. There's people who have been sexually abused. There's people who have experienced some major loss. Maybe they lost a mom or a dad when they were little. How does it then present in an adult? And maybe which trauma, if this question is valid, which trauma is more prevalent in your experience and your practice?
Okay, so look, probably wouldn't say which one is more because we all are exposed to different things. As you have rightly said, there are, for instance, maybe I should also, let me start here, Rich. I keep setting my own questions. Okay. But let me say this. We are all born innocent.
Yes.
Right? We all are born with a blank page where things have to be written. Right?
Yeah.
Now, those are the experiences I'm talking about. For instance, do you know no one is born hateful? Right? You have a little bit of that deposit, as per brain programming, but then it has to be reinforced.
Yes.
It has to be nurtured.
Nurtured, yeah.
Now, so experiences we get are going to nurture certain things in us. Okay? So, I'm answering your question on which one is more prevalent. Yeah. You see, when so if I was to answer that in one sentence, I would say post-traumatic stress disorder. But I don't want to complicate things. I want to break it down as easily and make it as relatable as possible. So what happens is that we all are exposed to different things. For instance, there are people who have been exposed to violence, right? Violence, parents haven't separated, you are a child, but then the home environment is so toxic that there's so much violence. Now, what violence does to children is that it triggers a fight or flight mode. So every time this person is in that fear, fight or flight mode, can I fight back? Can I run away? So that is terrible. So now there is that category. There are children who have experienced their parents separate and divorce, family breakdown. That is painful. It's highly distressing, and we've had a whole conversation about that. That kills children. That communicates so many things. It communicates rejection, because if you recall the definition I gave, it's an experience that is highly distressful. Now, if a child experiences parental divorce and separation, they're going to be dealing with anger, right? They have a deposit, like high reinforcement of anger, hate, fear of the unknown. They lose trust in the world, because children develop trust from their parents' relationship. Yeah, so they trust the world because their immediate world is trustworthy. Now, so this child is going to have that experience, and so they're going to. When you think about there's so much anxiety, there's resentment, there's regret, there's so much shame. So that is highly distressful. When a child has gone through that, just imagine how many negative emotions they're dealing with. Yes. So when they grow with that package. You see, that package of emotions. Yeah. Because that's what has been planted in them and continuously nurtured. That's why we counsel children of who have had such experiences, so that they can flush it out, process it, look at life differently, and so they don't have to go into the world as adults angry or, with that package of emotions. There are children that have been sexually abused. You see, that's highly distressful. Highly distressful, right? It comes with all manner of emotions, shame, anger, fear, everything. There are children that have experienced neglect.
Yes.
Neglect,
by their parents.
By their parents. So when they are neglected, again, it triggers a set of negative emotions. They cannot trust anyone, because if the person they trusted to take care of them didn't, then that becomes a problem. They get angry. So again, in whichever way, because a child is always looking for care and support, and also when they desire, so you remember the experience plus the desire to have resolved it. So all those things, I mean, I've just talked about a few, but there are so many other experiences, accident and all and all and all, so many things. Physical abuse.
Yes.
Yeah, physical abuse. For instance, there are parents who abuse children, but they could have suffered abuse from their caretakers. Caretakers. So all manner of things. So what we are seeing, of course, those others happen. And maybe if I may answer your question on which one we see more prevalent is that. And what is more prevalent is what happens in the home environment.
Yes.
The home environment. Because I could be young and I experience a traumatic experience at school. I'm a child, but I've had this. Now, the trauma inflicted by a teacher is still bad, but it's not as bad as what is inflicted by parents, and the entire home environment. So children tend to be, forgiving to teachers, to all these others, but a parent, then that is really more prevalent. So those experiences that are inflicted by parents, then they tend to affect children more.
It affects children more.
Yeah.
And so now you have an adult who is has grown with this desire to have done something about their situation and whatever the situation is, plus the negative emotions that came out of that situation. They are married, they are a boss somewhere, they are a CEO, and so you're going to see anger outbursts.
Yes.
You're going to see gaslighting, all the negative emotions that we're seeing today.
That's right. Trauma manifests especially in anger outbursts. You're going to see this so often because, as I said, the person has carried this looking for where to deposit it, and finally they get triggered. Of course, not all the time people, throw these anger outbursts. They have a convenient place. No, they can actually do it with their boss. They can do it anywhere. Now, that's why we say hurting people hurt people.
Others.
Yeah, hurting people hurt others because they don't intend it. And in my work as a therapist, whenever I get someone tell me, oh, my husband or my wife says these things, they are so angry, they easily get triggered. They use words, what we call angry words, angry words. They're trying to get something off their chest. But I tell them, it's not because they hate you. They actually, when they are doing this, they are saying these words to the person who caused the pain to them.
You're just the available person.
Available. What was I telling this lady yesterday? You are an available dumping site. So I was unkind and said, so you become the kitezi somehow.
Yeah.
And so you become a dumping site. But they don't hate you. They actually are just transferring pain, which they should have caused to someone or responded to another person, but they are doing it on you. So anger outbursts, but then they also, it also manifests in what we call post-traumatic stress disorder. So you find that someone is processing this all the time. So they approach the world looking for or running away from the experience they had. Now, because you see, our childhood shapes our adulthood.
That's true.
And so once you experience this in childhood, you're going to form a perception of how life looks like. So, for instance, if you couldn't trust your parents or they hurt you, you're going to form a perception that the world can never be trusted. So you'll find that some people they have that experience. They're saying, "Oh, this person is going to hurt me," or or that. So you can develop that kind of paranoia that you don't want to be hurt, running away from those experiences. Then there is what we call intrusive memories. Yeah, intrusive memories. You're happy, but then all of a sudden these memories come.
Yeah.
They dampen your
Flood
spirit.
your mind.
Yeah. So those flashbacks, flashbacks. Again, that's why we encourage, when you experience something in your childhood, don't think being an adult and putting on a different size of clothes is going to take away things.
That's true.
No, it's not going to take it away. It's just covering pain. So most of the time we are putting on clothes, covering pain, but we haven't resolved it.
Yeah.
We are angry towards people, we are hateful towards people because of the childhood experience that we had. And so it's very important that gets flashed, because if not, you're going to get these flashbacks all the time. So you'll be seated with your partner or with people, they see you, all of a sudden turn into something else.
Zone out.
Because you still have work to do. You have to clean the garage.
You do,
Unfortunately,
you have to clean
the garage. Yeah, so those then of course malfunctioning as an adult, because the experiences that you could have had in your childhood, they just suck your energy. They suck energy. And I hope, again, people know that we are powered from within. The energy we use is what we call the feel-good energy, which is, I've mentioned it before, called psychic energy. That psychic energy then can, if you lose it, if you're spending so much time processing the pain that you went through and all, we all have a supply of emotional energy every day. So if you direct it to that, then you can malfunction. You can get depleted, and you find that you don't have the energy to do other things. We have one brain, we don't have a spare brain. And so when you spend time thinking about this, that, then our cognition is affected. So you find that then you don't have the resources to invest in more effective things. Now, of course, the other thing, Rachel, is that trauma in adults, childhood trauma in adults, manifests in loss of self-esteem. Yeah, you've seen people, because as I mentioned, experiences like sexual abuse, physical abuse, separation of parents, and all that, all those communicate something to our hearts. And so our spirit is affected. We think, no, I deserve better. Now, if you go thinking you're not good enough, you deserve better, then you're going to, this is how it's going to manifest. And there are so numerous adults with low self-esteem. So many. They could be our bosses, they could be our partners, those who manifest undue competition. Everything is competition. The narcissistic people we are seeing, they are trying to fill a void, because on the inside there's a void that you're trying to fill. Those who put people down. You've seen them. Life has to be about them. And so when they see you with something good, they're going to say something that takes that,
bring you down.
Now, by bringing you down, the psychology of it is that when you bring someone down, they lose energy, and you take it and you use it to feed yours.
To feel good about yourself.
To feel good, because you're trying to top up there's a void on the inside you're trying to fill. So low self-esteem, a sense of low self-worth, that's how it manifests in adults. And it's bad. And again, maybe for the benefit of adults, things that we do, that like people who are horribly materialistic, they are also trying to fill a void. There's a void on the inside that you're trying to fill. Unfortunately, material things cannot. So that's why we encourage, please do a bit of reflection on what you went through. I tell people to do what we call an emotional matrix, and so that you're able to say, I'm angry towards who, and for what. As an adult, it's a very important tool to use, because we need to know who we are and the emotions we process. So if you've had like very serious traumatic experiences, it's very important to be aware of them, so that you don't fall into the trap of trying to compensate
for that experience
through things.
I
need this, I need that, I need that, then I can feel good. But then you see the happiness that we get from things is so short-lived. It's like eating popcorn.
That's true, yes.
So you have that, but you don't get full. You just confused. You just keep putting. So instead, you need to deal with that experience, to process it and know that, by the way, I'm angry. I got angry towards my dad, and that never got resolved. Right? Otherwise, you're going to malfunction. And of course, people cover it up. I don't know, maybe I'm answering questions you haven't asked me, but they cover it up. They say, that happened, I don't want, but it's in the store. You don't see it every day. You don't sleep on it every day.
And I think that's the thing about trauma. Like, it doesn't show up every day.
It's not an everyday thing.
Which then leads people to thinking they are okay.
They are not okay, yes. So they think, we think we are okay, but we are not okay. We are not okay. Yeah, so we need to check that and connect with it. Don't run away from it. You know, if that happened to you in your childhood, go back and pull it out, put it here, be aware of it, and then check. Are you still as helpless as you were before? Do you have more resources to deal with it now? Or you still don't have? You may be able to cut off something and store a little, but not the whole of it. But what I encourage people to do, of course, is not to do that. Just be aware of it.
Yeah, and I think you actually are answering the question I wanted to ask you next, in identifying the trauma that we faced and how it might be potentially affecting our adult life. Like you rightly put it, since it's in the garage, we are not experiencing it or its effects every single day. But there'll be that one trigger. There'll be a trigger today. Maybe you'll skip a month, maybe 2 months, have another trigger, and either you're having an outburst or you're consistently dealing with low self-esteem, low self-worth. And I think, to speak to the adults, how do you identify trauma and its effects in your life as an adult? Is it possible to do a self-diagnosis? When do I seek help? When do I seek help to identify the trauma and then heal from it?
Yeah, so when do I seek help? When these things manifest. So that's what I was telling you. When you realize you have anger, because like, especially anger. Anger is a very big thing in adults, because if once again, when we are young, we experience things we cannot resolve.
That's true.
And that makes us angry, because what it does is that it takes away the most desirable element in a human being, which is control.
Control, yes.
Because any experience that happens to you that you cannot control, then it's going to make you angry. It's going to throw you in a place of helplessness. So later on, when you grow and you realize you're doing things that you probably didn't intend, this is at personal level. Unfortunately, we spend very little energy doing self-reflection. Unfortunately, we need to do reflection. No one is going to tell you that. In fact, we feel guarded. We get guarded. We don't want someone to know what we are going through.
Yeah.
Because whenever we are hurting, we are hoping people don't realize it. And that makes it worse. But if you spend time alone, reflecting, what did I go through? How did it make me feel? And how does it still make me feel? Because whenever I'm doing therapy with adults, and I'm doing psychotherapy, rather psychoanalysis, we roll back. We always roll back to see to check what happened. Because someone says, I'm angry, or they are maybe fighting and beating their partners and violence. Most of the time they are beating the parents
The person who
the
hurt
person
them.
who hurt them,
Yeah.
the teacher who hurt them, who they were not able to do that. Now, when we are doing that psychoanalysis, we are able to get onto certain things. Oh, tell me about your family. What happened?
Your childhood.
Your childhood.
Yeah.
And they will say, oh, I did this and then this happened, my parents went, but that doesn't have anything to do with me. But so we go back to, let's talk about it. Do you want to talk about it? And sometimes you find someone doesn't even want to talk about it.
Which
Why?
should be very telling. Yeah.
Which is telling, because that means every time they think about it, it's hurting. It's hurting. Now, what we do in therapy is that then we say, let's talk about it. Do you want us to, you're not comfortable talking about it now? Can we talk about it
Another day,
another time? But the point is, you have to talk about it.
Yeah.
You have to analyze it and check how it made you feel. Because the feelings, if you don't face them, you're going to transfer them
to somebody else.
else. Anything that is not resolved is going to be transferred, because human nature was not created to contain pain. No, we were created to desire pleasure. So whenever we have pain stored up, we are uncomfortable. So that's why we always look for where to dump it. So the issue is, I still remember the question I'm answering is, how at personal level can you
identify
identify it? But you may not, as I mentioned earlier, now if you ask me things that are in my garage, I don't have that.
You cannot identify.
I can't identify
you have to
them.
go there.
You see, I have to go there and look at them. So we have to have intentional reflection. Intentional reflection. And be honest with yourself. Like, no one is putting you on pressure. Just look back and see this thing. Right? If you were exposed to your parents' fights, don't be dismissive and say, that had nothing to do with me. Now I've moved on. You haven't. You have not. Because it just keeps pulling you back. It probably shaped your perception of marriage, of relationships, of women, of men.
Something.
You see? You've had young girls who are going to get married, they say, all men, because of what they saw their dad do. Or young men who saw their moms or were disappointed, or maybe mom abandoned them. They say, all women are never to be trusted. Where is that coming from?
From somewhere.
From somewhere. Because you see, and I always ask people, what is all women? What is all men? You see, are you sure you've checked with all men? It's because you formed a perception from a painful experience. So it's very important for adults to step back and think, especially when you're seeing a manifestation of unpleasant behavior. Now, one of the things I forgot to talk about when you asked me about how it manifests, there are some people who have probably plunged into some behaviors since they were young, like drug abuse, like what we call negative coping. Now, that negative coping, you may not be honest with yourself and say, this is negative coping. You, for instance, I would ask someone, you're hooked to alcohol.
Or
are
drugs.
You sure you love it, or you're running away from something and looking for temporal pleasure. You see? Or several things. Some people it is sex, others, excessive sex with multiple people, because you're like, now this is boring, I need to get someone else to make me happy. Check. Are you sure you're running after so many women because you love them, or because you're trying to hack some little temporary pleasure? So it is important. Now, you see why awareness is important. Because you can there are so many things we do, but we haven't even given it a time of thought. But it's important to evaluate our behavior. Evaluate, why do I do what I do?
Why am I the
way that I am? Why do I react to situations the way I do? Don't just go thinking, then me, that's who I am. That's not true. There's every behavior is influenced by experience. every behavior, once again, is influenced by experience.
Yeah.
Because life is experienced.
That's true.
You see? So it's important for adults to do that. Do reflection, evaluate your behavior, challenge them. Challenge your thoughts, the way you perceive the world. Is that true? Like I've given you an example, all women, all men.
Yeah.
How many are all? How many have you experienced?
Can you count them?
That's
Yes.
not true.
Yes.
You know, so that's something that adults need to do.
Me too. So there's self-reflection, there's evaluation, and then
There's challenging.
there's challenging.
Challenging
Yes.
your
Challenge.
perceptions.
Yes.
Yeah, and your behaviors.
Yes. Yes. And why you think the way you
But
think.
also evaluating options to problem solving. Because as I mentioned earlier, when we are young and we are not able to deal with those traumatic experiences, but now you have, because every time we grow, every step we take, we gain a little power, a little responsibility. Are you sure you're still helpless? So again, check your options to solving the problem. You probably have so many, but the most important thing is if you cannot, seek help.
Seek help. Yes. I like that. And I think that really is half the battle to recovery. I think that when children who then become adults have not had their trauma checked, they manifest in all the things that you have talked about. And I think I want you to speak to the road to recovery. So identifying triggers, the things that resurrect that feeling, whether it's low self-worth or fear of shame, like you're afraid of public opinion, you are afraid of even any kind of feedback because maybe a teacher once told you something and it has stayed with you all your life. What would then recovery look like? How do I, after I have identified, I've self-evaluated, I now understand that that thing that happened to me when I was a child affected me significantly and I can't run away from it. What then would be the next step?
Yeah, so the next step is, I guess we've touched on it already, that please be bold enough, be courageous enough. It's going to require courage.
Yes.
You're not just going to take a quick, comfortable ride or walk into that area. It's going to be a lot of reflection. I just remembered a family whose dad was murdered, you know, and they were murdered he was murdered when they were young, right? And every time you attended any of their functions, you'd hear a statement, never trust anyone.
Oh.
You see, never trust anyone. So their approach to relationships is paranoia.
That's not healthy.
You see, so that the first step is to check, to ask those uncomfortable questions to yourself. Why do I behave the way I do? Why am I the way that I am? Now, remember, human nature loves to validate our being.
Our behavior, yes.
Our behaviors.
Yeah.
That's why, once again, you hear people say, me, that's who I am. No. So that is, it's important to evaluate. But the next important thing, pay attention to the feedback people are giving you. Don't be dismissive of this feedback. Maybe it's your partner. Maybe it's your partner. And of course, being in marriage therapy, I've worked with several couples, where a partner is saying, but you're so angry. This is something small. Why are you eruptive? You know? Why are you losing it? And you're banging doors, you're banging tables, you're all this. Please listen to feedback. You see, the world is our accountability system. Yeah. So the people around us, and especially those closest to us, because in the public we all go to shine and we present this whole facade that we're good and we're okay. So that the world out doesn't know us. Please pay attention to people closest to you. Those are the people that are going to give feedback, and that feedback is going to help. Unfortunately, that's the feedback we shy away from. We hate. We tell people off. We say, leave me alone. We say, don't curse me. but that's not true.
Or judge me.
Don't judge me.
Yeah.
You see, don't judge me. Can you imagine? Don't judge me. And not every feedback is judgmental.
That's
Someone
true.
is actually helping you to be better.
Yeah.
And so it's very important to be open to feedback. Who is giving you feedback? Who would you trust to be giving you honest feedback? You know, I personally, I believe, whether it's my brother or my sister, or I really believe in honest feedback.
Yeah, I know that about you.
I do that because I feel I don't want to be a fake person in people's lives, because if someone, I believe all of us can be better.
That's true.
That's why I also pick the courage to get hard feedback. Give it to me nicely, but give it to me.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'll listen.
Yeah.
Of course, if you get abusive, I'll not take it. Now, listen to that.
Yeah.
Check your brother, your sister, your partner, because there are very few adults that will give you feedback, good feedback, right? And so pay attention to that. It's also very important to see the losses we are making. You see, the road to recovery, I'm talking about that.
Yeah.
Please check the losses you're making, because, you know, sometimes we make peace with behaviors that are making us lose so much. Some of us have lost relationships. Very important, marriages. You're from one relationship to another, but it's because you are a hurting person.
That's it.
You know, it's not because people are hurting you.
Yeah.
It's because you are a hurting person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
And you're inflicting that hurt.
And you're inflicting that hurt. But also, you're carrying this hypervigilance, and you're seeing it in people who are innocent.
That's true.
You see that?
Yeah.
That hypervigilance, I love to break down hypervigilance so people can connect with it. Hypervigilance is when we have something stored up in our heads. We are going to see it even when it's not there.
It's not there.
You see?
Yeah.
I've told, I think it's on this forum where I've said, women who have been pregnant, when you're pregnant, you're going to see almost
More
everyone, even men.
Yes. That is so true.
You're going to see so many pregnant people. When you're not, you don't care.
You don't care.
Maybe men will say, when you buy a particular car,
yes.
yeah,
Yes. You're going to
there
see
is
so
a
many
mental resource you attach to it,
Yes.
either happiness or
people.
joy or whatever,
A
and it's going to direct how you connect with those cars.
Yes.
So maybe you were not seeing them when you bought. You thought you were the only one with this car, but now when you buy, you're going to see so many.
There's so many.
Where is this coming from? It's because you have a mental experience that you're connecting with. So that's exactly what happens with trauma. When we have traumatic experiences, we are going to connect with it, and that's why people say the world is unfair. I can't trust, because you're going to see everyone you can't trust, because that's what you connect.
That's what you've connected with.
You see, that's why, for instance, such people, when they are choosing partners, they connect with them and they say, this person is going to hurt me. I just pick people who are hurting me. So because that's what is on your mind.
So hypervigilance works with both pleasure and pain.
It works with both.
Okay.
Yeah, but more with
pain.
Because the one for pleasure just wanes off very quickly. But this one sticks. It stays.
Yeah.
So that is, so I say, I'm talking about, check things you're hyper vigilant about. Are they, are they real? Are you, are you just hyper attentive to them? So check, and again, it's it comes from a place of high level courage,
yes,
and desire to be better.
To be better, yeah.
Now, you may not be able to do that. We are talking about road to recovery. So you may not be, if you identify them. Of course, certain things you're going to not go there.
Because they're too painful.
They're too painful.
Yeah.
Now, that is also a sign that you need to deal with it. If you connect with anything and you cut halfway, you don't want to move, to follow the storyline and check how it started. You're like,
I don't want to get into it.
I don't want, because even, as I told you, even us, when we are doing psychoanalysis, we get people who say, stop there.
Oh, really?
Stop there.
It's too
I
much.
know it's too much.
Yeah.
I don't want to think about it.
Yeah.
Now that's a sign that you have a wound that needs to be cleaned.
It's festering.
Yes, it's festering. So you need to clean it, and you need to do that. That is so important. Now, should you get to a place where you feel you haven't done thorough analysis, it has just pointed you to the need to clean up the past, then that's why therapy is important.
Exists, yes, yes.
That's why we are there. Because if you don't do that, some people develop physical illnesses. You know, just imagine you're processing pain all the time. You're stretching the heart.
Stretching your heart.
You know, you're stretching your heart. You're stretching your lungs.
Yeah.
Every time you think about it, you get into excessive breathing. What happens? That's why I tell people that actually sadness can affect your heart and your lungs more than smoking.
Are you serious? And you can actually become physically sick.
You can become physically sick. So that's why I think I've shared it here that 95% of all illness is either directly caused by stress or made worse by stress. So when we talk about stress, distressing experiences, trauma, and all this is something that you can move with. Every time you think about it, you have heartbeat, your lungs are, you're breathing so fast. What are you doing? We don't have spare lungs and spare hearts. You don't have that. You don't have a spare brain. So if we store all this negativity in it, it's going to weigh you down with time. So that's why, for instance, you have seen the trajectory, disease trajectory in adulthood. People are developing illnesses. We have
at very young age.
At a very young age.
Hypertension. Yeah.
Most of these things are not genetic.
No,
they are not genetic. They are connecting with stress and experiences.
Yeah.
So that's why we are saying, please don't cover it with a clean blazer.
A clean blazer, nice shoes.
A nice haircut, and then you shine and you do makeup.
Yes.
No, don't do that. Clean from inside. We get clean from inside, and that's why God wants to connect with our spirit as well. When our spirits are okay, we have high energy levels.
That's true.
And so we are able to stand against illness. Most of the diseases, we are able to avert them. When we talk another time, I'll have gotten enough information. I should have prepared for this, but we get weighed down. Our kidneys, our lungs, our liver, and all that. That's where we are getting so sick. Because you're dealing with unresolved pain. Any unresolved pain gets transferred
to something. It might be your body, it might be someone else.
To your body or to someone else. So it's very important to seek therapy.
I think one of the things I've picked from what you have said is it takes courage to go back. And I mean, we've seen it even in the movies when somebody is having to relive a painful experience. They'll usually say, no, let's stop here. You know, let's not go back. But yet, that courage is what is going to begin the healing. Even when you have a physical wound, the pain, the cleaning is very painful, you know, very almost to the point where you want to tell the doctor, let's just stop. But after you have cleaned and felt that really, really intense pain, then the healing begins to take place.
Exactly, because then what we have been talking about, indeed, to use that analogy, is that then you have a wound, you have pus.
Yes.
Anyone who has suffered a wound, you wish they could just do this. But then what is happening
on the inside?
So this pus is actually eating up. There is a bacteria that is eating up the rest of the flesh. So that's exactly what happens with emotional wounds. If you cover it up, you only are concerned about what people are seeing on the outside, but you're not concerned about you. And then it's eating you up. It's eating your happiness. It's eating your joy. But it also eats opportunity for you to have meaningful relationships. You know. So if you cannot have meaningful, you're using templates. From the past. So most of us, by the way, we have a file of templates.
that we can use.
That we can use anywhere.
Yeah.
Anywhere.
Yeah.
Because those experiences give them to us. You see? So we need to discard the templates, experience life afresh.
Yeah.
You know, trust people. I tell people every time I get someone say, oh, people are bad. Life presents in binary form. They are bad people, they are also good people.
Yes.
But you know, when you carry templates that carry negative experiences, you're likely to connect with only bad people.
That's true.
You see?
That's
so
true.
you're going to have difficulty experiencing this other life, which is real, because you have a skewed way of looking at situations.
Yes. And I think the other thing for me has been the hypervigilance, that if you connect with a painful side of your story or your experience, that is all you're going to see. That's all you're going to see. Yes.
Yeah,
pain
you can
everywhere,
never see.
Even potential relationships. And we've seen people who have missed out on good opportunities for even marriage opportunities. A potential suitor comes along and all you can see is pain. He's saying things that remind you of an experience that you had, and therefore you don't give that relationship a chance because it reminds you of something that you went through.
Because you're running away from pain.
Yes.
Yeah. So one of the things you remind me of, it also tends to affect our ability to be resilient. Because every time you experience something similar to that, the issue is, the world is against me.
Yes.
So I need to run.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I've seen, in marriage counseling, I was talking to someone recently and I was asking them, are you sure your marriage is irredeemable? Because we had gone through this and I asked him to explain to me what was happening. But you know what he explained? Yes, it was a normal marriage.
Yes.
Yeah, so I told him, I said, this is a normal marriage because normal marriages are not just one-sided happiness
it's
forever.
A balance of everything.
Yeah, because you're going to have moments for problem solving.
Yeah.
And I asked, because he's running away. So we evaluated all this and I was like, you sure? Yeah, but considering all this, you have 4 children, you have all this. Would you rather invest in solving this and reestablish the relationship? He said, I'm out of this. I'm done. And I mean, people say, oh, they have another person. No, he didn't have even another person. But the thing is, when I did psychoanalysis, he's gone through some traumas.
Yeah.
He was put in a boarding school.
When he was little.
Imagine boarding school. He was put in a boarding school at age 4. He was separated from his family, and he interpreted that as rejection. He does not, and according to him, it's the mother who insisted he needed to be in a boarding school because he wasn't concentrating at school. What happened? He formed a perception of unfair women. Yes. So now anything that the wife does is such a big thing. So he doesn't have any grace to attach or to send to that experience. All he sees is unfair. Women are unfair. And you know, he'll keep talking about it. Women are so unfair. Women are so unfair. So this is something that we need to know, you know, because now imagine, so he succeeded in academics because he was put in a boarding school.
Eventually, yes.
He struggled at first, then developed tough skin, and then continued. Now, according to the world, this person is successful. Right? But you know what? He has low resilience because anything that happens in his marriage, he runs away. Anything, whenever they have a challenge, he sleeps out. Anything that happens at the workplace, he moves from one job to another, because
that's sad.
That's
quite
so
sad.
The resilience levels just get depleted.
Very low.
So we need to be careful that then we don't just cover it and then say, oh, I'm successful, oh, smile, but then deal with it because it's going to determine so many things.
A lot of things. Wow, I've learned so much. I think I thought I knew what trauma is, but you know, in how it presents in adults, but also in how it is continually perpetuated by the victim, and so it's important to get help. If you are watching this and you're experiencing some form of trauma effect, let's say the thing happened to you when you were little, self-reflection, self-evaluation is a good place to start. Yeah. Dr. Evers, what would your parting shots be?
My parting shots, I've said so many things, so I'll just say some of these negative experiences have a natural way of crossing from one generation to another. If we don't resolve it, then it's not just going to affect you, it's going to affect even generations after you, right?
Yeah.
For instance, we've seen people who are angry at their dads, right? But now they are doing things, they are doing anger-informed behaviors, which now make their children angry.
The ripple effect.
So you see that ripple effect?
Yeah.
So this natural way of what we call generational issues. So if we do not stop it, then it can just continue.
Yeah.
It just continues. So if you're hating your dad, you're doing things that make your children hate you. So before you know, now you're the dad that
you were trying to
run away from.
Run away from.
So it's very, very important for us to step back and resolve trauma. I want to encourage people to know that trauma life presents us with all these traumatic experiences, but trauma gets resolved. We heal.
Yeah.
And once again, I want to say to you, you can heal. You can heal, because not every illness we suffer kills us.
That's true.
Yeah, so don't allow trauma to kill you and to kill your relationships and to kill the way you look at life and to deny you the opportunity to experience life in its fullness. Because if you do not, if you don't deal or resolve trauma, you're going to live a skewed life. You're going to connect only with the painful part of the world. Yet, there is a beautiful part more that we can enjoy if we chose to resolve it.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for that. I do hope this was as insightful as it was for me. Please let us know in our comment section what you have picked out. Maybe you have realized that you are acting out what you experienced when you were a child. And I think it's just refreshing and important for every adult to self-evaluate. It starts with you and the desire to want to be better. Otherwise, those things end up being blockers to opportunities, to good, healthy relationships, and to many other things that, life has to offer you. And so if trauma is something that you have experienced and you believe it's affecting your life, seek help. Seek help, because help is available. And we do want you to be better. Until next week, stay well, stay healthy, leave us a comment and subscribe to our channel. We'll be back again with you for another conversation right here on Reality Check. Bye.